Hi, today we're going to start with lease options. People ask me about lease options. I'm going to give them what I know. Okay, first of all, what is an option? An option is the right to buy a property at a specific price within a specific period of time. Now, with an option, you do not have to buy that property. You can buy the property or you may not buy the property depending on what. I'm not sure yet. Number two, the lease. What is a lease? Most people know what a lease is. Okay, leasing is renting for a certain period of time for a certain amount of money. Okay, now on a lease option, what we're doing is we're marrying the option and the lease together. Okay, now how do you make money off a lease option? There's two things you can do. If you lease the property and you just want to live in it and you want to buy it in the future, but you have bad credit, or you don't have down payment or whatever it is, this gives you time to get it together to do that. Clean up your credit, get down payment, whatever. Okay, so over here to make a money-making technique, I'll call this. First, we're going to find a seller who wants to sell on a lease option. They can be found in the for rent section or the for sales section. What you want to find is a distressed property. That's what you want to find. So somebody wants to get out of it one way or another. Okay, the second thing you want to do when you find the seller is you want to lease from him, let's use an example of $1,000 a month. We're going to get a 5-year option. What does that mean? We're going to pay $1,000 a month for up to 5 years, 60 months. And at the end, we have the option to either buy the property, or we can buy it anytime in that period, that 60-month period, or we can let the option consideration go down the drain. We do not have to buy the property. We have the option to buy it or not buy it, depending on whether we like the price, whether we have the money. There could be a lot of variables there. The next thing we want to do is we want to find a tenant buyer. With this tenant buyer, we will give them a 1-year lease option. Now, why are we giving them a 1-year lease when we got a 5-year? Because if they don't buy it in that period of time, we have to find another one. And this pads our account here so that we got more time to find other tenant buyers. Now, also with the tenant buyer, we're going to rent it to him for $1,500 a month. So you can see that we're leasing it ourselves for $1,000. We're subleasing it for $1,500 a month. We pick up $500 a month on the transaction. Okay, now, if the tenant exercises the option to purchase it from us, we are going to use that money to pay off the seller. So let's say we're buying it for $100,000, but we're selling it to the tenant buyer for $120,000. When he goes out there and gets the loan for the $120,000, puts the deal together, puts that into escrow, we're going to take $100,000 of that and give it to the seller. We're left with the spread, which is $20,000 in that example. Now, if the tenant does not exercise the option, remember, you have the right not to exercise the option also. Then we're going to give them another 1-year lease option, or we'll just go out and get a new tenant buyer. Okay? Now, by doing it that way, we have 3 different ways of making money on the project. The 3 different profit phrases are non-refundable option fees. This is your option consideration. When you give an option, you have to give consideration for that option. Most of the times it's money. However, you can also put other things up. Let's say you don't have any money, but you can manage the building. Let's say it's a 20-unit apartment building you got the option on. Okay, well, you can become the manager and do the manager work for free, so to speak. That's your option consideration to the seller or the landlord. Okay, the second thing we can do is we get monthly cash flow from the rents. On the example I used up here, we are paying $1,000 a month, but we are collecting $1,500 a month. That's $500 a month or $6,000 a year on the spread. That is the second way we make money. Now, the third way we make money is when the tenant buyer pays us a higher price than what we paid the seller for our price. And the example I just used is we have an option for $100,000. They have an option for $120,000. They exercise their option at $120,000. They pay us. We pay the $100,000 underneath. We're left with a $20,000 profit. So as you can see, we have made money in 3 ways. We made money on the non-refundable option consideration. We made money on the rents that we collected, and we're making money on the spread of what we paid for the property versus what the tenant buyer is paying for the property. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to discuss some advantages and some disadvantages. Some of the advantages are we have high leverage. When you buy a piece of property, usually you got to put down 10%, maybe 20%, something to that effect, or if you go FHA, maybe 3.5%. Okay. However, in this case, we're usually putting up 1% for the option consideration. That's about average. We might have put up no money at all. We might have put up work or something else for the consideration. Okay, so that's what I mean by high leverage. Okay, little or no money down. This kind of goes hand in hand with high leverage because we're only going to put down probably 1% for the option consideration, maybe nothing. That's why it says little or no money down. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we negotiate directly with the seller or the landlord and the buyer directly. The buyer and the seller sit down and they can negotiate directly. There's no middleman. There's no real estate agent involved who can screw the deal up. Okay. Also, financially low risk. How is it financially low risk? Well, we're only putting up 1% of the money for the option consideration. So the most we can lose if we don't exercise our option, we do lose it, but the most we can lose is 1%. That's what we put up. Okay. Now, are there disadvantages to this? Yes, there are. Number one disadvantage is the tenant could default on the monthly rents. So if he defaults on the $1,500 a month that he's paying us, we still owe the $1,000 a month to our landlord or seller, whatever you want to call him. Okay. Next is the investor failing to do due diligence. Due diligence is checking out all the information that you possibly can. Could have to do with the expenses, could have to do with the income, but you have to check everything out. And checking everything out is called due diligence. Now, one of the due diligence is your tenant buyer. You definitely want to put a tenant buyer in there who is going to buy the property in the future. You don't want to put one in there that theoretically doesn't want to buy it at all, because actually you're going to lose their option consideration. I don't know why they do this. Now, my experience is almost none of the people exercise the option. And I have a gut feeling it's all for financial reasons, because there's nothing wrong with properties. And we've sold a couple of properties on lease options, but they've just, at the end of their option period, they just said they didn't want to buy the property, and therefore we keep the option consideration. So that is lease options in a nutshell. Basically, though, I do think that the advantages of a lease option override the disadvantages of the lease option. Okay, so that's our video for today. We did lease options. If you'd like to see more videos that we have them up on youtube.com. Make sure you do hashtag Floyd Loans. It'll come right up if you put the hashtag in. If you don't put the hashtag in, you might have to go through some rigmarole. Facebook/Floyd Loans. I usually put those on Facebook. And on Twitter, it's @Floyd Loans. So be sure to go to those and check out my videos.